All right, well, you want to, we can be standing when
That's very
the
true.
thing starts. Now I gotta wait till the camera catches up to us. Oh, here comes Bartlett too. Oh, here we are, all right, we're on. Okay, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, this is the 6 o'clock meeting for September 7th, 2023 of the Planning Board. Before we start, if anybody, all the three people that are watching us on TV, the 615, 550 Newtown Road and the 555 Newtown Road have continued to...
They both requested to be continued to the meeting of October 12th. So
Okay.
when we get to those agenda times, well, I'll ask you to do a time certain.
So, anyway, so at least we have that. Okay, 6 o'clock, we have minutes of prior meetings. Everybody had a chance to look? No, we didn't do any? Okay, bills, we have any bills?
Don't have any bills to
We have
present.
nothing tonight. Input on member updates on Project Northern Bank. I do have an update on that one. So I'll start with Northern Bank because that's the only one I have. The building has gone out to bid because I've been asked to bid it, which I have recused myself from. One of the companies I've done work for was looking for it, so they're looking out to get the bids by end of October, November, something like that. So at least they're starting the bidding process on Northern Bank. I don't know anything about anyone else, but that's all I have. Anybody got anything else? On any of the Hager, MBTA, anything? Nothing? Nobody?
On Hager Homestead, I do have, I did review the draft deed restrictions for the non-lottery affordable units, and they seem to be in good order. So.
Okay.
Just want to remind people that next week, I think Thursday, is the third public meeting about the open space and recreation plan. It will be the final public.
2 meetings?
You have time for the October 12th and October 26th, yeah.
Okay. Okay. You sound, take a drink of water.
This is as good as it gets.
No? You have nothing? I can open up to the public if they...
So I have some things, but we're going to have some empty space, so I'll just wait.
You'll
It's
wait
okay.
for the... Really? I can't talk you out of this, huh?
No. Thank you, though.
Okay, well, anyone have any public input? George, do you have anything in the back?
No, not really.
Nothing? No. Anyone else? Oh, we're gonna have nothing to do tonight. Okay, well, it's, what else?
Sleep on the job.
Yeah, well, do we still get, no, never mind. I was gonna say, we still get paid the same amount.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whether there's business or not.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're not on commission.
No.
Anything else? It's not quite 6:10, so we have to wait another minute or two. Are you 7:15?
Is that me?
Yeah,
Yes.
you're gonna wait around till 7:15? Okay. Wow. Okay, all right, well, it's 6:10 somewhere. So why don't we have a request for expanded operations for 537 Great Road, Community Care Collaborative Marijuana Facility. We have David before us, the owner of the property, of the business, I mean.
Thank you. Good evening. Dave Gianetta, owner and CEO of Collective Premium Cannabis, 537 Great Road. Here before you this evening to propose an amendment to our hours of operation. We're currently Monday through Sunday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And we're proposing Tuesday and Wednesday until 10 p.m. and Thursday through Saturday until 11 p.m. This proposal has been approved by Chief of Police and chair and vice chair Board of Selectmen, or Select Board.
And you need the extended hours because of,
So, a couple of reasons. One would be pretty specific to appeal to only customers who shop at the point, and majority of the hours of operation of the businesses at the point are 9 PM or later. And also, just to really, compare, I would say, to the liquor store, which is a similar demographic, the one-stop liquors, they're open until 10 PM. It's also added revenue to the town, roughly to the tune of $17,000 to $20,000 annually.
what about your competition? Are they open in comparable hours?
This isn't a play against the competition, but it's, I believe Gage closes at, it's either 8 or 9. We in Billerica are actually our next competition. And we're open these hours, actually a little bit later. But the same process, we did the same process, actually a little different. I negotiated directly with the chief of police in Billerica, who then made the recommendation to the select board. His biggest concern, if I may share, was the commuting hours opposed to the evening hours, which we kept the same. So the hours I just proposed are our hours in Billerica.
And if, just to remind the board, you're in an industrial zone, so it's not like you're gonna be impacting the businesses that are around you, so.
Correct. We haven't had any negative complaints since our 1.5 years of existence. So,
Does the board have any questions, Barbara?
No, I don't have any issues with him.
Jeff? Anna?
No, I'm fine.
You good? Okay. Is anyone in the audience? Nobody, the 4 people here aren't here for that? Okay. I don't have a problem with it.
But I did have a question.
Okay.
It doesn't have to do with this request necessarily. So you just mentioned $20,000 coming to the town. So is that like currently?
no. How I arrive at that figure is I'm even taking a lower average of, say, about 25 to 30 added customers on average per day by being able to expand our hours, which would then ultimately equate to, over the course of a year, about that 17,000 to 20,000
Okay.
per year.
Great, thank you for explaining that.
You're welcome.
I also wanted to ask, related to revenue to the town, so there were some changes over the last year, I believe, from the Cannabis Control Commission in terms of revenues that can and can't go to the town. So for example, the impact fee, I believe. Could you just explain
Sure.
for our large viewing audience
Yes.
what the revenue is that the town
Yes.
does
I know
currently
that
receive?
this has been, we'll call it a hot topic, I guess. We amended our HCA with the town, actually by the town's suggestion, on the 27th of March of this year. And the amendment is around the impact fee of 3%. Prior to this agreement, and prior to the state changing their law back in November of last year, the 3% impact fee was somewhat arbitrary. It could be, it was just due at the end of, whatever the term was that was agreed upon. Now, the way we've amended that is, in the way that the state has amended their regulation, is they want to see from the town that the town produces a statement that clearly states what expenses were incurred by the town as a result of our operation. And if a town cannot provide that, then there's no fee due. If they can provide it, then you pay the fee no more than 3% of gross sales. However, on every sale we have a 20% excise tax. Within that 20% excise tax is a 3% local excise tax that is automatically received on every single transaction. So for instance, $1,000 in revenue, $200 goes into our hands. We hold it until the end of the month. We then send it to the state. The state, in whatever time it is, they turn around and release the 3% of that initial, so, $30 of that initial 1,000. I believe to date, we're somewhere in excess of $150,000 actually to the town
Okay,
in our year and a half of operation.
great. Well, thank you so much for that
You're
great
welcome.
explanation.
You're welcome.
Okay, does the board have any problem amending the hours of operation? Wait,
Just one quick, Mark Grandbacher, I'm on the select board. The select board hasn't seen this. I don't have a problem with it per se, but I would just suggest you get the documentation that the chief of police has approved it and other members of the select board. Because it's not on your packet that I see. Maybe you have it somewhere that I don't have.
No, they don't have it. I have an email from the chief, had a conversation with vice chair.
Yeah, just there should be
select board.
documentation that it's been accepted.
I could ask that they provide something in
Forward
writing
something
to
to
the
us. Yep.
planning board. Okay,
That would be great,
we can approve it subject to,
sure.
subject to getting that documentation.
Sure.
Okay.
so I'll entertain a motion to expand the hours. What were they again?
Okay, so extending the maximum hours of operation listed in condition 1 of the September 30th, 2022 decisions for Community Care Collective, hereby extending them as follows. Maximum hours of operation shall be, and make sure I got this right, Sunday through Wednesday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Thursday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 11 p.m.
So
Is that
Tuesday
correct?
and Wednesday till
Okay.
10 p.m.
Tuesday,
Sunday, Monday, no change,
okay, Sunday,
9 p.m.
Okay.
But the rest, Thursday through Saturday, 11 p.m.
Okay. So, I take that back. So hereby extending the forward maximum hours of operation Monday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Tuesday and Wednesday, and Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 9.
Hold on, Maren.
So I had previously highlighted, this is the proposal.
5 hours.
This was
Yep.
condition number 2.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Tuesday-
because there were a lot of
There was some.
times in that letter, it was just a little confusing, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So Tuesday, extending the maximum hours on Tuesday and Wednesday.
7 hours.
Correct.
So it's
7 hours.
Thursday,
All right, because it's two
Friday,
on 3
Saturday.
days, 6.
Okay, Maren, would you mind reading this? Or we could have our clerk read it.
So Tuesday and Wednesday, Sunday, Monday, stay the same. Tuesday and Wednesday to 10 p.m. Thursday through Sunday to 11 p.m.
Thursday through Saturday.
Thursday, thank you.
Saturday.
So moved. Someone want to second it?
I'll second it.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Sorry
luck,
for
by the
my.
way.
Thank you very much. Maren, you're welcome to keep that. It's just it's the same letter,
Yeah, thank you.
just highlighted.
Yep,
Okay.
thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you all.
Okay, now we have nothing to do. No one wants to talk to us. Our 6:15 is continued till the October 12th meeting, and our 6:15 is 550 Newtown Road.
Yep, so they I know that they've been working through the peer review comments. They don't have a response yet ready for the board.
Okay.
They've requested to continue to October 12th. October 12th. So if we do at the MBTA Community Zoning Bylaw at 6:15, then at 6:45 or 7 o'clock, we can start the continued
7.
public hearings. So-
7, yeah.
Yeah, I would say 7. We've got to give them a little.
Okay, so start with 5:50 at 7 o'clock.
So I move that we continue the 550 Newtown Road Major Commercial Industrial Use Special Permit to 7 p.m. on October 12th.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, and the other one, 550 Newtown Road, open space
We
development.
can't open it till 6:45.
I'm going to be technical about it. We're not going to open it. We're just going to continue it anyway.
Okay,
All
continue.
right.
Okay.
All right, what do you got?
So a couple of things. a while back, in April, I believe, we had briefly discussed the fact that through conversations last spring, a lot of the residents wanted additional forms of information, and one of those ways was through office hours. So I am meeting at the library every other Saturday from 10 to 11 a.m., including this Saturday, and just answering questions that folks might not be able to get to ask here in these meetings. But the other idea that we had, and I had shared it with the chair, and we had discussed it briefly here, and that is to perhaps have information at the Reuben Hoare Library. And so after discussions with their chair and Sam Alvarez at the library, they have agreed that if we would like to be able to have in their periodical section a notebook available of some of our documents that folks can go and look at and or take a copy, so that folks have that readily available. Because I continue to hear that our website, especially the new one, is very cumbersome to try to find materials. So that's one thing. The other one is we could also provide a presentation, not provide, but we could have a presentation, say for example, MBTA's is going to be a viewed segment of our meetings. Perhaps they can have a computer. This was their idea. They could have a computer or two on stands around, and with something that says, watch the latest planning board video here of the such and such meeting or such and such presentation. So those are the two different ideas that I wanted to share with you all about having the documents available on paper. So as an example, with the 550 King Street, we have the single page of the 21 lots. I think that would be a good one to be able to have, because folks don't know exactly what that's looking like, and that is the latest information that we have right now. And then after today's meeting, we might have more information. So again, have 5 to 10 copies available in a notebook that folks can take. We can gauge how well it's received, whether or not people are accessing that information or not. And then the second idea being the computers available, which would be something they would need to do to have the snippet of
Would
a
it be
particular
just
meeting.
certain, like, office hours of the computer, or all the time?
All the time, yeah.
And why can't we just get the meetings from LCTV and have it on their computer over there?
Yeah, I think that's what they would want to do, is just,
Well, they could do that themselves with LCTV.
Yes.
Well, that's fine with me.
yeah.
And as far as 10 copies of what we've done, do we have any extra staff yet? We're still working on an assistant town planner. Are we any closer to that?
No, we're further away. The first individual withdrew their application. Family could not afford to move to the area. Second applicant, who was very local, accepted a job at a higher rate elsewhere.
And do we have a third?
Well, they're starting to dig pretty deep.
So anyway, regardless, if there isn't anybody available, as long as I can make copies here, I can come and do it, as long as that's okay. I don't care. That's something, it's
Do you
easy.
wanna sit there with 10 copies in a manila folder? Does the board have any problems with that?
No, I think it'll be interesting to see. I mean, the website isn't that cumbersome.
If I can.
So
do
one
it.
of the things that this is doing is being able to meet people where they are. And that means that if they're at the library and they are scrolling or strolling through the periodical section and they see planning board information and they have the opportunity to stop and take a look at it, great. That is another opportunity that information is made available to them that otherwise they might not have.
Well, I think we ought to, I'm a paper guy. I mean, I have a computer in my office where I can, I bring all this up, but I always print stuff out. I do it in 11 by 17 format. And all of the Northern Bank renderings, those are pretty impressive, and people ask about it, and I don't know how many people have taken the opportunity to look into it. There were also, rendered site plans more or less for 550 King. So maybe if we focus on, rather than minutes and,
Yeah, no minutes.
no minutes.
Yeah.
No minutes.
but things that, with the MBTA communities, whatever we come up with, wouldn't be bad to have there.
Yeah, so we as a board have sort of identified the 4 big projects as we've listed on our agenda: Northern Bank, Hager, MBTA, and King Street. So those would be the ones that I would recommend, that if there's any document that's important, that we should have it over there so that folks can get information on those. And if we change these up and there's something new, one of these, falls off the list, then, we don't have to do that anymore. So that would be what I would recommend. And I would agree, Jeff, that having the nice big pictures of the developments would be really nice. However, after various conversations with the folks at Reuben Horror, they're just really strapped for wall space. They just don't have it. And so that's why we can't post those bigger items.
Oh, that's fine. I was just saying that in the periodical racks, they're not jammed up. There's room in there. There could be the planning board corner or something. But anyway, I'm just saying a picture
Yes.
is worth 1,000 words.
Yes, I totally agree, and that's one of the reasons for doing that, is because we want to be able to have folks see it. And as we move forward, even for fall town meeting, perhaps we can also have any visuals that we might create available.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the problem is figuring out how to get it there.
Yeah, so I'm happy to work with Maren in terms of identifying the items and then getting the copies made and over there.
Okay.
Okay?
Unless we can find somebody else eventually. I don't think
That would be awesome.
Okay.
Like a high school intern or something. Do we have any, is there that? Do we ever have high school?
It's an obvious community service thing at the high school.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
running
well, what
copies.
we find with interns is the time to
I know,
to manage.
I totally understand, yeah.
So yes, we have, building department did have a really good high school intern. The Board of Health had a first-year college intern part-time over the summer. We were able to utilize her. And we do have a part-time college student doing some scanning and filing of the electronic documents. That's her focus is, and her forte is working with the documents.
So I guess to summarize, what I heard you all say is, yes, we can move forward on something like this, and for the paper versions, for now, I'll work with Maren to identify any important items from these 4, Northern Bank, Hager, MBTA Communities, or 550 King Street, to put over there. And I'll be responsible for making sure that it stays
Up to date.
supplied. Yes, supplied. And then for the computer component, I can also work with Maren to just relay the fact that if there is a particular snippet from our meetings that should be posted, then I'll work with the library, and I probably just an email and let them know, yes, this would be the appropriate snippet, and see if LCTV can just pull that out. Yep.
I'm sure they can.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've realized over time that when real estate agents or potential buyers or whoever calls town hall looking for information on a certain piece of property, I always walk them through how to look the information up on their own, because then the next week you don't get the next question on the next parcel. They have the information on how to look it up. So I would hope that while it's nice to have, another avenue for people to look up the information, that if the information is available in paper form, they will also go to the librarians and ask for help on how do I find the more in-depth information that is posted.
Are the librarians up to speed as well, you think?
If you ever need to search for anything, that's who you go to.
Okay,
That's their
good.
specialty, is searching
Good.
for the detailed information on any subject.
Great. So that's a great idea, Maren. So yeah, that was one item I wanted to share with everyone, so thank you. The second one was, actually, I was going to ask Maren, I'm so glad you're here tonight, because we participated in a meeting for MART, along with Select Board Member DeCoste and a few other town folks, and I don't know that we've had a chance to really debrief on that. Are you up to describing a little bit about what we did that day?
Sure. And I believe we touched on this part of it. The MART was awarded a Community Connections grant. At the time, I thought it was $400,000 stretched across 4 communities, but Littleton's portion is $400,000 stretched across several years, and to pay for additional transit services. So MART is going to be starting to outreach on the van service that they're going to start to supplement the Council on Aging, the Elder and Human Services van services. And then they want to also hear from the town on what fixed route service that the town is interested in exploring. Is when the van rides are, when they get some data on, when some of the van rides are being heavily utilized, then MART will consider setting up a fixed route service to cover that. So maybe every Sunday they go to several different houses of worship. Maybe every other Tuesday they go to the grocery store, or something like that. But will be looking for input from the town, from the community, on what types of fixed route services or flexible route services.
I actually really thought they had a lot of enthusiasm for the work that it will take to be able to create both the scheduled routes as well as the kind of impromptu rides that folks might want. There were a lot of questions asked, including, what happens if the radius actually extends north into New Hampshire? Would that be something that would be possible? So a lot of questions were asked, and they're going to try to provide responses back. But the flexible rides, I know we have folks who enjoy riding their bikes, and sometimes being able to get a ride to a bike trail is important, so you don't have to leave your car there. So perhaps that would be another option that they could explore, is having a bike rack on the vans to be able to
So
transport
these
bikes.
aren't buses, they're vans.
Well, they have different rolling stock available.
Okay.
So the options, over time, the options are wide open. Right now, they're talking vans or, for example, Uber and Lyft.
Because right now we have a bus that goes to 550 King and then goes up to Westford and I don't know where, I guess Lowell.
Right.
I mean, to me, it's like service to the train station, but
Yeah,
buses on Foster Street?
well, but if it takes, 10 cars off the road,
Yeah.
then yes, clearly you would do that.
And if it allows a senior to get out who otherwise might not be able to, that's a
So
huge
then the
benefit
next
as well.
question is this the type of grant which we would not receive if we did not fulfill the MBTA community's
Commitment.
commitment?
Well, this grant was directly to MART. It wasn't,
Okay.
the town was not one of the applicants or one of the beneficiaries
Right.
working with MART on it. I don't know how to answer that one.
Okay.
I would if I'm going to venture a guess, I would say that if the state gets mad at us, they're not gonna be looking at
Giving Mart a lot of money to service
us,
Littleton.
right?
Yeah.
You know, they're gonna, from everything I've seen, they're willing to throw all kinds of money if you do it, and they're willing to really punish you if you don't do it, so, anyway. Great, that's nice.
Thank you so much, Maren.
Yeah.
We appreciate that. And it's something exciting for Littleton. We got
Like one
picked.
of enough.
So the Bicycle Pedestrian Committee, I think, also met on August 14th. Did anybody go to that meeting?
I don't think, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm not on that. No,
You're not
I'm
on
on
that.
the Transportation Advisory.
Okay, that's the one. All right. I was just wondering if anybody had attended that meeting.
I thought that's when they met with the select board, jointly with the select board to hear the presentation of the bicycle
Oh, you're
pedestrian
right.
master plan.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So, yeah.
All right. So, and there were a lot of action items for the chair of BPAC.
And I've been thinking about their suggestion about not striping the roads ever since as I'm driving around town.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of data that helps towns, DPWs decide when it's appropriate to not stripe it. And it needs to be part of the thought process.
Okay, anything else? Is that,
Two other quick things. So, because we still have, 40 minutes?
that much?
Well,
We
6:45, we have a little
Yeah.
business.
No,
Very, very
6:45,
short.
Continue too.
I know, but we have to continue it.
We can't continue it, but then can always take the recess. They will put the recess sign up
Yeah.
if you.
You know what we should
choose.
talk about is, we did get an update, maybe, we should have probably talked about it, board business, about potential expansion of the sewer, where Nick had sent us an email to give us an update. Maybe we should forward that to the 3 people listening in Littleton.
Sure, go ahead.
Thanks. Well, it wasn't a whole lot, it was just that they had engaged Simpson and Weston and Sampson to start looking at added capacity at the ball field. And they've reevaluated the criteria for other sites to expand the leaching field, the fields that they're looking at. So they're moving forward with, they've heard what people had to say, and see, I shouldn't have opened my mouth. And so they're at least moving forward with it. Mr. Sanders, can you give us a little more information on
I
that?
just want to make a comment, Mr. Chairman. George Sanders, 672 Great Road. Anybody think about having Mark to come to the town meeting where you have a large amount of citizens there with regard to this grant program? Just give an overview of what Littleton has available to them. I think it would be a good idea. That way they could ask questions, and there's more people there that could be concerned about what this grant program is. And how long is this 400,000 if it's for Littleton? How long is it there for?
3 years.
3 years. And I think that's a golden opportunity for them to get 5 or 10 minutes at the town meeting and just tell us, what's here for Littleton,
They can have a
and let
table.
the people know what's going on.
Right, they're already scheduled. They've already added to their schedule that Littleton Town Meeting is November 1st, and we're hoping that they'll be able to have a table where they can hand out information.
Yes. And there are also, the MART folks have also been apprised of a lot of the other town activities that are going on. So for example, I think we mentioned the road race, we mentioned the Oktoberfest, so that if they have staffing available, they could come to those community events and they can talk about this new offering. That would be a great opportunity.
And it's passed, but third Thursday would have been a great opportunity.
They were connected with Park and Rec on that. I don't know if they were able to take advantage of it or not.
Thank you, George.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else?
Yes, so, so I just wanted to give everyone on the planning board a heads up on something for the Affordable Housing Trust. So recognizing that there are 3 members of the Affordable Housing Trust, I need us all to be wearing our planning board hats. With respect to the property, we did have a conversation with the town council to try to keep the ball rolling in terms of the documents that needed to be drafted for the acceptance by the Affordable Housing Trust. And so in considering all of that, there's going to be some more discussion at the Affordable Housing Trust that needs to happen, but I wanted to give a heads up to the planning board that at some point, probably in October, if we could set aside some time as well to talk about what plans the Affordable Housing Trust has, because it's just appropriate, I think, to be able to have the conversation brought to the planning board to make sure that, since the planning board is the authority that has a decision accepting that house, that we talk about it.
You're talking about Durkee Farms, you didn't.
Durkee Farm, I'm sorry, Durkee Farm,
I know what you're talking about.
yes, yes.
I don't think Jeff.
Sorry, Durkee Farm, accepting the farmhouse and 5 acres of land.
One of the issues is that we really can't accept it. We've got to give it to an entity and,
Well,
well,
I'll spin that a little differently. The Affordable Housing Trust can hold the property, and they're the only ones that need, then they have already taken the vote to accept the property. The decision for the planning board would be just final input on the 2 different conditions of approval for Durkee and for Kay for the use of that property. Initially, it said it would be for Durkee, it said it would be set aside as open space. Then the K subdivision application came in, and according to town council, usually the second decision overrides the first one, and it's just a question for the planning board whether that was your intention. And so the second decision at K said that it would be donated by the developer to the town for affordable housing purposes.
So, yes, I just wanted to give everybody a heads up about that.
I believe the discussion at the Affordable Housing meeting was that the trust would buy the property for $1 with community preservation money, just so that would simplify things going forward.
can we get more money out of them than that? Maybe we
No.
get like 100,000 out of it, we put it in a sidewalk fund or something.
No.
Why not? They got money.
Anyhow,
We don't have money, they
so,
got
so
money.
that's a
If you want
discussion
people
for the
living on
Affordable Housing
sidewalk,
Trust.
We'll be happy to fund a sidewalk for
All right,
you.
never mind, $1.
So, but that does raise another question, or another point that I wanted to raise with the planning board, and that is how challenging it is for the town to accept properties in lieu of actually accepting funds or accepting a unit to be built. I mean, I think through various conversations here and at the select board, we've heard that the town doesn't make a very good landlord, and the process itself is cumbersome. So for the future, we as a board may even want to have a policy around that that says we do not accept properties as
Yeah, we're not
fee
real
in
good
lieu
at
of.
it.
Yes. So,
Well, we're not a good developer.
No, that's not.
by the way, did we ever have Delisa on?
Pardon?
Was Delisa going to be on Zoom?
No.
Okay. So anyway, yes,
Yeah.
if we could,
At the joint hearing we had with the select board and the finance committee, et cetera, it was really interesting, the Affordable Housing Trust. I mean, you do have quite a bit of money.
900,000.
Not in relationship to developing units, but in relationship to helping people, subsidizing people, which I thought was, in my view, I think is more important than maybe, let's let the developers develop affordable housing. And that's just my opinion, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
But the fact, I think, and you got the reaction from one of the finance committee members, which was my reaction, hey, I'm so glad that we're doing this, that we're helping people, during the pandemic, and we're helping people, that are certified as needy. I don't know how you do it, but, I mean, that's really great as our community, you know.
We're good at giving money away, but we're not good at building houses.
Yeah. I'm going to dig into another part of that conversation that I found interesting. I heard it, an opinion, I believe it was a couple select board members that were interested in how would the town support, or would it be possible for the town to support a fund for people who need to, for example, do home repairs, and how does that tie into affordable housing? I've had similar conversations with town council when asked this question before, and it's very difficult to thread that needle between the anti-aid clause in state law that says public funds can't be used to aid a particular individual, and how Affordable Housing Trust can only support affordable housing. So unless there's some way to put a deed restriction on a unit, and if the courts
gets real
are
messy
real messy real fast. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice idea, but it's really hard to implement something like
Yeah,
that.
well, and then honestly, in my opinion, it would need to be at least one more step removed from the town. It could be, maybe there's a group that wants to get band together to do good for affordable housing, similar to the Littleton Conservation Trust. That's not a town entity, but it's a private entity that supports a lot of conservation work in the town. So it would be something similar to
I read
that.
something recently, and I can't remember what community it was, but because they wanted to develop affordable housing, they didn't want to do it directly. They instituted basically a revolving fund to loan money to affordable housing developers. And it wasn't the total thing, but it was part of the package that an affordable housing developer put together. When it was, discharged, they'd still have the money, and and they had developed, it was a small city, and they had like 3 or 4 projects that had been done with that. And anyway. So.
Yeah.
Well, if you find out where that was, let us know.
I don't know if I read it in an architecture magazine or something else.
Well, so that really raises the point of what you just said, Mar, and if there are other groups, projects, et cetera, in town that need to be done. I've heard before and that the housing authority for Pine Tree Park, that, there's some work that could be done there, but unfortunately funds aren't available. Is that a potential project, right?
That's more of an affordable housing trust question, because if you're going to loan them the
Exactly.
money,
Well,
Exactly.
And then the other way to look at that is housing authorities, their funding is supposed to be from the legislature. So if the town could certainly back the request to the legislature for additional funds for particular repairs.
I know I've personally gone to our state legislators, and so maybe next week during that conversation with them, that could be raised. Yeah. 6:45.
we have to continue the public hearing for 555 Newtown Road, the open space development, to October.
Thursday, October 12th. Do this one at 7:30? Question mark?
Sure. Whatever you want to do.
That
Okay.
keeps it back to back with 550 Newtown Road for
So when they continue, it's a bigger gap? Okay.
so the residents of Newtown Road only have to come for one
Did
meeting.
they call you to ask if they were going to be there? They're getting smart.
Yep.
Cool.
So-
So moved. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I knew you were going to say that.
Could we consider a recess until the next hearing at 7:15? minutes, 25 minutes.
Anybody have anything else they want to talk about? No? I'll entertain a motion to recess till 7:15.
I second. I don't know if we have to move or
Well,
whatever.
no, we don't have to do anything, we just have to shut the thing off, right?
Just make sure that Amber knows that to put up a.
Was it Venice?
Yeah, Venice. We both own property in Venice.
I was gonna say, I wish I did. Anyway, all right, so I think we're gonna be back on in 2 seconds. Okay. I don't see my face on there yet. There it is. Oh, we're done. Anyway, all right, so we're back. It's 7:15. We've had a little bit of a recess. We have continued public hearing, 234 Taylor Street, adult use marijuana establishment in Water Resource District special permit, sanctuary medical.
Thank you very much. My name is Peter Durning. I'm an attorney at Burns & Levinson, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Sanctuary Medicinal, Inc. With me today is Nick Sekmari from the company, Patricia Rose from Tech Environmental, and Susan Carter from Places and Associates. I think as transpired in the last meeting, the board was interested in retaining a peer review to look at odor issues. Tech Environmental has prepared an odor management plan that was just submitted to the board and the town today. Our understanding was that you would be engaging a peer review to take a look at it and get the benefit of their technical review, and that we'd have a more substantive discussion on the issue of odor and the odor management plan specifically at the next meeting. But to provide a bit of an overview of the content of the odor management plan, Patricia Rose is going to walk through some of the highlights, but again, I recommend likely that the more substantive discussion be at the next meeting. Patricia.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Patricia Rosa. I'm an environmental engineer at Tech Environmental. And just a little background, I've been involved with the Sanctuary project since 2019, so I'm very aware of the odor complaints and the different odor control systems that have been in place from 2019 to now. So, like Peter Durning has mentioned, odor management plan was submitted as of today, so your third-party review can go through that and give us their input. And I'm here today just to give an overview of the different sections that are part of the odor management plan and answer any questions you might have with the information I've provided to you today. Can everyone hear me fine?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm not sure if you guys are looking at the odor management plan or you're flying through it, but the first section of the odor management plan is a background and odor potential. So it discusses about the current odor control that's in system right now for the existing building. So that includes current recommendations that Tech have provided to Sanctuary. So they have implemented recirculated carbon systems that have been installed in the loading dock area, the grow room hallway, and the lobby/break room area. If those in place in the recommendations we gave them in 2019, which include the air curtains and high-speed garage doors, and also Sanctuary has decided to update their ozone generator system. So with those in place, they are meant to lower the odor baseline levels. And part of the introduction, it goes into more detail of that and also provides regulation requirements and also facility contact information. So if people have complaints, there is a hotline number there. And in regards to how Sanctuary will respond, the next section will discuss more about odor threshold, cannabis odor in general, odor training, odor monitoring, and odor complaint response. So as of today, Tech has already trained specific people at Sanctuary that are designated to do odor monitoring around the facility. And correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, you guys have been doing this since a couple months when we did train them. And the OMP shows a plan that shows the locations on-site and off-site. They do those routine monitoring locations, and they have been trained to determine if they have a normal olfactory sensitivity. So that all happened at our office. I went back with them, went through the locations, showed them how to use the odor jar kits that we provided them with, and those odor jar kits include different concentrations, diluted concentrations of N-butanol. And N-butanol is used because it's a neutral hedonic tone, so it's not an unpleasant or pleasant smell. So that way, they can go to a location that there's odor and determine if the odor intensity is similar to what's already existing naturally around, or if it's higher than it is, and if it's an issue, they can address that and figure out where that odor source is. So that's also part of their response to odor complaints. So the OMP includes includes a odor survey log, example of what they will be filling out when they do the routine odor management. And then it also includes a odor complaint response form. So it's a similar layout to the odor log survey that they fill out, but in regards to that, it takes into consideration what was the complaint, what time, where was it, and as part of that, they do their rounds and confirm where that source is coming from, and if they find a source, they address that immediately. So part of all that, that's kind of the existing building and what they're doing in regards to monitoring odor. The next section of the OMP addresses the future building that they're going to be adding to the existing building and what odor control will be implemented in that building. So as mentioned before, the additional building won't have any growing facilities. Regardless of that, they will be implementing air curtains, recirculating carbon systems, and high-speed garage doors in the new buildings as well. As part of that, they will also be implementing a new carbon system, will be not only to address the odor that's in the new building, but also the existing building. And that system is more like a polishing system because the recirculated carbon units will still be operating while that system is operating, and then also with the ozone generator system. So in regards to operating and maintenance, the OMP outlines daily, weekly, and monthly activities that Sanctuary has to conduct so that they control the odor and make sure that there isn't any, the odor baseline isn't increasing to a level that it's a nuisance or there's complaints coming in as that occurred earlier this summer in regards to like the gaskets that they had already addressed and fixed. So it takes in regards to those considerations. So they'll be doing routine inspections around the building, inside the building, and doing the odor monitoring around the building on a couple days in the week. So that's all outlined in the OMP. Also a part of the OMP, there are cut sheets for the recirculating carbon units that are already in place, the ozone generator system that they will be updating, and also for the new carbon system that they'll be including as part of the expansion. So that's a brief overview of the OMP in general, and if you have any questions about what I've just mentioned right now, or clarifications on things that I might not address that was mentioned in the last planning board meeting, I'm more than happy to answer.
Do you have any questions?
Well, you know, we're here because of the expansion.
Yep.
And though I think it's reassuring they're not increasing, growing at this expansion, and you touched upon it, but could you explain exactly how the mechanical systems in this addition will help the existing?
Yeah, so in regards to the new expansion, I'll try to answer this as best I can. Michael Landon is the one who knows way better than me. He's my boss. But so this unit, the new carbon system, is just exhaust. So after these recirculating carbon units that basically, there are images in the OMP that show that there's an inlet on the bottom and an outlet at the top. It's just going through, say, the office space, correct? So then the OMP shows a layout of where the ductwork would conceptually be, that which connects the new building, the old building, to that system. So they're coming from the old building hallways where the grow rooms are into that hallway that goes into the new building, and there are ductworks that extend to possibly different areas of the new building to that one unit, and then through exhaust. And it's at an area where they're able to maintain it more easily and monitor it more easily. And that's why we want a designated space, and we needed more space. So that's why the benefit of expanding gives them that opportunity to look at it daily, make sure it's working, if not, address it right away instead of it being somewhere that they can't reach all the time.
And this is the system, this new system will
Yeah.
connect to the existing system that's in the corridors and.
So it'll be
Because
separate
isn't there
ductwork.
like a pressure differential in the growing rooms so that theoretically the odor doesn't get out, or how does that work?
So the grow rooms are in, you can correct me if I'm not wrong, Nick, but they're positive pressure.
Mhm.
So they're when the door opens, that odor goes into the hallway.
Mhm.
So the ductwork for this new system will be in the hallway.
Right.
So it'll be capturing those, but on top of that, there are the carbon recirculating systems that are also in the hallway.
So this is an upgrade in the expansion to address not only the expansion, but to
Yes.
address the issues in the old
Yes.
system. So you're basically putting redundancy back in there.
Exactly. So we have this as, like I said, a polishing system. They still have their ozone generating system, and they will have the recirculating carbon unit. So there are multiple units that will be helping to lower that odor baseline level.
So the stuff goes through the carbon system, and then this next system catches it after, right?
Right.
So it's double. It's
Yeah.
treated double, whereas now it's only treated one way. Is that a
From
layman's
my
way to look at it?
from my understanding, I might be misspeaking, but yes, I believe so.
So with the OMP, which is the plan, the
Yep.
operational plan, which I haven't had a chance to look at it, but it
Yes, sir.
sounds like it's quite detailed.
Yes.
But it still has to be implemented.
Yes.
And it sounds like there's also a sort of a greater resource for the neighbors
Yes.
to complain.
Yes. There is a 24-hour hotline.
Okay. Because plans are great,
Yes.
but they have to be.
Yeah. And just to clarify, the OMP does go through and spell out how quickly they need to respond,
Mhm.
and also records being submitted to the Board of Health after a certain period of time. So everything's going to be tracked into that form, and then put it into a more neater, some in like Excel sheet, just track every single time there's an odor complaint, and it can be submitted to the Board of Health when they request it, or, you know.
So,
time.
That's interesting because right now, we just get physical complaints. You
Yes.
know, we have people coming to the
Right.
meetings but if there is an easily accessible log of complaints,
Yeah.
that would be helpful.
And-
Helpful for us to monitor.
Yeah, and the call goes to the front desk. So
Yeah.
if there's an odor complaint, they can go and say one of the people who are already trained to do the odor monitoring, go check out around the site, see what's going on, and then log it. And if they find the source, they address it right away, say, hey, this is what's wrong, we need to fix this. It might take a couple weeks or a day, or we already fixed it at that moment.
Okay.
Barbara, do you have any questions?
Yeah, you said that the grow room is positive air pressure, so it sends air out. Is the entire facility positive pressure, or is there enough negative pressure that the building as a whole is negative?
Negative. So it's negative as a whole, right? Other than the burrow rooms. Okay.
All right.
So a lot of the leakage is occurring when like someone leaves, like
Yeah.
opens the front door. So that's why one of the locations was the lobby / break room area, because a lot of the odors do attach to your clothing, and when you're leaving, you're just bringing that odor with you. So
So, and then you had this gasket problem, and part of that was because the units were installed in a way that they were hard to maintain. Is that right, or?
Now, would you like to come up and speak on that?
Sure.
Hi, Nicholas Sadner at 234. No, it's not because they were hard to maintain, but it's basically as the units got older, and just where this gasket was on the door, they're massive units, the size of a small bus, up at the top, it just failed.
Okay.
So, yeah, no, they're easily maintained, and I believe, looking at it, they were replaced with different gaskets. Kind of looks like it was a manufacturer error on that, where they kind of prematurely failed, but now they shouldn't do that, yeah.
I just want to add to that part of the OMP, doing more routine inspections of that is taking into consideration. So the same thing will happen again where a bunch of people are complaining, oh, there's odor, and then finding out that, hey, this gasket wasn't working and failed for a week or so. So that's all part of the OMP, just to try to maintain that odor control and not just saying, hey, we're putting all these units and we're doing what we need to do, but they're proactively doing something.
Any questions or concerns?
So how many pages is this O&M plan?
From the top of my head, including the cover letter, I believe it's like the 91.
And so is this O&M plan different than the action plan?
Sorry, I don't know what you mean by the actual plan.
Well, I recall the chair during the last meeting really trying to be very firm that he wanted to see an action plan. So is this one in the same?
I'm looking at it like that.
Yes, it is. Yep.
My next question was going to be if we can get a condensed version of it and put it in as one of your conditions of approval, that way it's in there. That's the way I was kind of leaning with it.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I think that's a little quick.
I'm not done with it. I'm just saying that as
Okay.
we move forward, I'm not ready
Once
to
your
go.
third party review looks at it first, yeah.
Just this is 20 pages without all the cut sheets and all the letters and everything prior to it, but the actual management plan is 20 pages.
I'm not fast fooding this and getting it out
Yeah.
today. No.
Well, so I would like to make a comment to my colleagues and to the applicants as well. So when the applicants show up with new information that we haven't seen, that the residents haven't seen, and it's 90-some pages, that's really unfair to us. It's unfair to the residents to not have an opportunity to be able to review it and go through and provide input, get questions answered, et cetera. So I would hope that at the next meeting, we're not going to assume that this is, oh, you already saw that it's a done deal. We do plan to go through this in
We're
more
putting this
detail.
out. Yeah, just
Great,
putting it
hold
out.
on, I'm not done, please. And I would also like to ask, and I know that I've asked the engineer on this team before with other applications, that you need to provide information to us a week before. We have another applicant in this room right now that does a very good job of providing information at least 7 to 10 days before they are due to come before us, and I greatly appreciate that more than you can believe, because we have to be prepared. We need to be able to give the residents an opportunity, and when you come before us at the last minute, oh, you just provided this today? No. I would ask the board, my fellow colleagues, that in the future, we just say, no, if you haven't provided it to us and you're going to do it the day of, then you got to wait till the next time around.
Which is what they're doing. They're presenting it to us, and they're giving us a month to look at it, and my next question was gonna be, do we have a consultant that we're thinking of using for this, Myron?
So Nick did provide 2 different names today, and I'll forward both of those to Green to see if they're available for a peer review.
So, Anna, I agree with you. However, in this case, they started off stating that they're just giving us an overview, knowing that, and I sort of appreciate that because I wouldn't know what to do with a 90-page OMP. I just
I
wouldn't.
hope we would all read it.
I'm not going to read 90 pages. I'm not going to look at cut sheets. I have no way of. That's why we have a peer review.
That's a different conversation.
I'm okay with that one, all right? We don't know anything about marijuana and smells.
So the whole point of it, though, is if they're going to come and talk with us about stuff, we should be able to have it in advance. And whether you read it or not, or anybody reads it or not,
Well,
it's up to each of us.
No, my point is,
But-
I will read it now that it's available to us. Not that I'll read the abbreviated one, but I'm just saying that now I'm sort of keyed into what the issues are, and I can sort of understand a little more. The one thing I do have a comment about is, what are the remedies? Are there any remedies if there's odor billowing out of the building? Is it a Board of Health issue?
It is a Board of Health
Okay.
issue.
And have you ever had them say to you, we're going to make you shut down until the odor is under control, or?
Nope, I've been working with the Neshoba Board of Health and Jim Giraffe for quite a while now on odor complaints. And he's come out, he's done investigations. I've actually worked with the police on this matter also. They've also done their rounds. And for a while now, Jim Giraffe actually even said, I don't feel that this is at a nuisance level. Which under the regulations, odor is then concerned if it's a nuisance level.
Okay. And this is just after you repaired the gaskets or during that time, or?
From inception of the building up until now.
Okay. Well, the neighbors have a different feeling.
Exactly, completely different.
But
In
they
fact, I
did-
spoke with one today who said that every winter, every morning when he, walks out his door, there it is. So, and it's a completely different person that's been here before, so. Yep.
Okay, so we're going to send it out for peer review.
Can I add one more thing, Mr. Chair, before we continue that piece? I would like this board to actually put in ironclad fines and penalties, because if Mr. Gareffi, are you laughing about
No,
that?
I'm just saying this is an issue.
It is an issue
That was
because
what I was
like-
getting at about what happens.
Yeah, if
when
Mr.
there's-
Gareffi, who is the agent for Board of Health, doesn't see an issue with it, well, you know what? Then I guess somebody else has to be the one to see an issue with it and be able to put in some sort of enforcement guidelines, and then what are the repercussions if.
Is that,
Well, I think we're dealing with two different sets of regulations. Board of Health regulations, if the odor rises to the level of a nuisance, and nuisance is defined by state law, it's not a Jim's opinion one way or the other, then a Board of Health has authority to deal with that situation. Now that the planning board is aware that odor is an issue in that area, I would recommend that you include on any approval, a condition that addresses odor. That also allows for a new, different process to address odors, and that's through zoning enforcement. Planning board has no authority for enforcement, no authority to add fines. Those are already outlined in zoning enforcement.
so similar to a noise complaint?
Similar.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
the process is that you will call the building inspector and say, there's noise above what I think are the specified levels, but would
And
we
this
have
was
to
the
have a
condition-
bylaw that would define the nuisance odor?
If you recall, for the last couple of retail or marijuana facilities, you added a condition that addressed odor. And it talks about timing, and it talks about the nature. That would be, if you get to the point of needing a draft decision, I'll include that. Include that condition in that draft. That allows the special permit itself to be enforced for odor.
I would like to ask that we please consider adding that as
Oh,
part of
yeah.
it.
And I think from terms of your guys' presentation, I think you need to focus on how this addition will mitigate,
Yeah.
what's gone on before.
If I could just make a comment, Sue Carter from Places Associates. Like the board, I'm new to the odor issues, so when I read it, I may have a different perspective of everyone else who's very familiar with it. I thought was good is the stuff in the report that puts it into layman's terms of what's happening. One of the key things that I thought was interesting is that the odor is generated from the plants as they're growing. So the fact that there are no additional grow rooms, it just means the same air that escapes periodically now will go through another filtration system. There will be no new odors generated on the site. So when you take the plant from when it's first picked to when it's packaged and goes out the door, the odor just dissipates over time with it, so that by not having any new grow rooms, we're not adding more potential odor to the site. It's just that we're adding additional filtration processes to it before the air is expelled to the atmosphere. So I thought that was an important thing that I had no clue on that. I just know sometimes it
Because
smells.
when you think of the odor, you think of smoke from, the
Right.
use of marijuana.
Right.
Right.
And, okay.
So
That's
that was kind of my point.
Yeah.
You're adding a second layer of
Right.
defense
Right.
to it by increasing,
Right.
by doing this. That's what.
But I found I learned a lot by reading the O&M report in terms about odor, because I had no clue how you even measure it or anything, and all of that. And I think that may be helpful for the board, if you only have half an hour of quiet time to read it. I found that was very helpful to read, and I learned a lot about it. And in reading through it, you can see if you add another layer of filtration on, it gives you some redundancy if something breaks, but it also gives you a finer product before it's dispelled into the atmosphere.
So I want to clarify my comment, because I don't want people to get the wrong impression. Of course, I will read
Yeah.
the 20-page.
Yeah.
However, I have no way of analyzing which piece of equipment is best for this. I have to rely on a professional. So anyway, so that's.
Does anyone else have any? Otherwise, I'll open it up to all the people that are here for this.
Just one comment, Mr.
Sure.
Chair. I just wanted to clarify, Mr. Yates, that's why we anticipated a more substantive discussion on this at the next
Later.
meeting, after you get the benefit from the peer review. And then I also just wanted to mention that this OMP, this odor management plan, is being submitted to the Board of Health also. So it will be under their purview, which, as Maren mentioned, they do have enforcement authority on that as well. So,
And can we make sure it's posted to the project page?
It is.
Okay.
Thank you.
great, thank you.
Mr. Sanders, you had your hand up.
George Sanders, 672 Great Road. Mr. Chairman, members of the board here, when an odor get outside the door, it's the natural gases in the atmosphere that neutralizes it. That's how you get rid of it. I got 30 years in the environmental field, in toxic environment. And I can tell you, a negative pressure system is what these marijuana facilities should have, with carbon charcoal filters installed. The rooms where they're growing shouldn't have a positive pressure on it, because every time the door is open, how often it's open, it pushes it out. Why isn't there a negative pressure system on those growing rooms which takes the odor up and takes it off into the filter system that you have? It depends on the number of filters that will be required up there at the charcoal, so that you can smell on the other end. You don't smell any marijuana on that end. But if you smell on the other end, there's marijuana smell. I know it's a little more expensive to put in a negative pressure system and to use these carbon charcoal filters. But if you go into the business, you have to take in consideration the community that you're in and what you're doing. If the people are smelling it, it becomes a nuisance. Now, I sort of kind of asked a question back a few weeks ago, because I had every intent of sending a letter to the state and telling the state that they ought to require that these businesses put in a negative pressure system, so there isn't a nuisance in the community where they go in and establish. And with our bylaw, I think that the people in the town of Littleton should put the requirement in the bylaw stating that these marijuana facilities would have a negative pressure system mounted with carbon charcoal filters. to kill the smell. That is what we should do. You don't have to worry about these 90 pages that they're sending to you, telling you about reading this or that. If they detect it, that it's coming out, the question was asked, what are you going to do? What are the remedies? It's in the air. What are they going to do when they detect it? How are they going to stop unless they shut down the operation?
Exactly. That
That's
should
the
be
only
the
way you're gonna
penalty.
get rid of it. But the thing is, we here local can do a better job than what we're doing. And that is that we ought to put in the bylaw what we want, and we know that it will work. I seen this gentleman up here nodding his head when I was talking about what the filters will do. That is the answer. Otherwise, we're going to have this bureaucracy of filling out forms and doing this and contacting this in the front office. What the front office is going to do when you call and say, hey, I smell marijuana out here? They ain't going to do nothing. But give the information to somebody else and say, let's go and see where we can find it. Because I tell you right now, once it gets outside, you can't stop it. Once it gets in the environment, you can't stop it. The best way is with a negative pressure system. And I got 7 years in R&D, research and development. And I know because I work with toxins. And I'm talking stuff like nerve agent, GB, VX. I put on a filter, a match with filter, charcoal filters in it. And I'm in a toxic environment. I don't smell it. And I don't get it. It's the same thing can happen to the marijuana smell, which the charcoal is good for taking that odor of food stuff, consider that they're cooking and doing. But the thing that you need to do is put a bite into the bylaw and require that they have these facilities mounted with a negative pressure system with carbon charcoal filter. That is the answer, Mr. Chairman and ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
George.
Mr. Chair, can we please ask the applicants to respond to his idea? Because Mr. Sanders has raised that idea over and over and over, and I do not hear the applicants saying that this is something they're going to do. And if they're not going to do it, I'd like to understand why.
May I respond to that? So that is actually exactly what is going on. To your question about the positive pressure rooms, that's actually required since it's a medicinal product and they're very susceptible to pathogens. What we did in that building is we created those rooms inside the building and they're closed looped positive pressure so that they then go into the envelope to not allowing pathogens or anything to affect those plants. So those rooms need to be positive pressure. The building, though, however, is negative pressure. And what we're proposing is an upgraded carbon filtration system along with all the activated carbon charcoal filters that we already have in the facility filtering the air, is to upgrade the carbon filter to that negative pressure system.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mark Rambacher.
One more question here because we're running late.
205 Fartwell, I have two things, very brief. On the reporting system, can I suggest there's also a portal so people can actually monitor and see what's going on and rather than just a hotline? My other question is, I assume there's a separate odor management plan for during construction, because when you're punching your envelope, there's going to be more of an issue with smells as well. So, and I assume that should be in a separate document.
Could be a condition.
Okay. All right, so we're going to send this out for peer review. And hopefully we'll have an answer back before our next meeting.
A week in advance before our next
Well,
meeting.
hopefully our consultant will get it back to us a week in advance, okay?
If not, we should wait.
So I suggest this be continued to Thursday, October 12th.
Okay,
8 o'clock.
is that good? Okay. Thank you. Continue it to them, thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right, we have 7:45, public hearing, definitive subdivisions, King Street Common, 550 King Street. Thank you.
have to read this? That's small print. All right. Public hearing, definitive subdivision, 550 King Street. Public hearing, let's see, the Town of Littleton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, September 7th at 7:45 in room 103 of the Shattuck Street Town offices to consider the application for definitive subdivision for the King Street Commons mixed-use development at 550 King Street according to MGL Chapter 40, Section 6, and Chapter 41, Section 81S. The applicant is proposing a 22-lot mixed-use subdivision comprised of 780 residential units, 70,000 square feet commercial retail space, 20,000 square feet of office space, and a reuse of existing 480,000 square foot office buildings. The new lots will be accessed from King Street, Great Road, and a proposed on-site roadway network. Property location 550 King Street, Assessor's Map U08, Parcel 10-0. Applicant and property owner 550 King Street LLC, care of Salvatore Lupoli. Application materials and plans can be viewed at the Planning Board and Town Clerk's office during their regular office hours or at the town website, www.littletonma.org. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on the proposed plan should appear at the time and place designated or provide written comment to mtoohill@littletonma.org by September 5th if possible. Any questions, call Town Planner Maren Toohill at 978-540-2425. Portland Harvey Clerk, Thursday, August 24th and 31st.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rick Freiberg from TEC, the civil engineer for the project. I'm joined tonight by my colleague, Chris Raymond, who's the project manager for it all at TEC. So this is really a continuation. I think we were last in front of you guys about a month ago, receiving approval of the preliminary subdivision plan. What's in front of you now is the definitive subdivision plan, so it's the next stage in that subdivision process. This is the part of the plan where we show you the details of the roadway that's going to be constructed on site, that on-site road that Bartlett mentioned when he was reading the public notice. And what's interesting about this project, right, is that if this was just a pure site plan review, we wouldn't do this process. It would just be site plan review like you guys are normally used to seeing. Because we're proposing to subdivide the lots as part of the phasing and supporting as a financial instrument to construct the project in phases, we go through this process of the subdivision, which then gives you guys review of the on-site roadway design. And so it's a much more detailed package than the one-sheet plan that you saw last time. And to discuss the details of what was submitted as part of that package, I'd like to introduce Chris Raymond.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Rick. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here this evening. My name is Chris Raymond from TEC. I'm sure you guys are pretty familiar with this project by now. And as Rick mentioned, you saw the preliminary plan about a month ago, where we proposed to subdivide the parcel into 22 separate parcels and in a new right-of-way. Well, the plan set has grown significantly. Our intent is still the same, to create these 22 new parcels and new right-of-way. The right-of-way will include a new boulevard-style roadway that'll be curbed, paved, include a closed drainage system and associated underground utilities. It'll be very pedestrian and bike-friendly, and incorporate a variety of different aesthetically pleasing landscape as you kind of travel down the roadway. The road will extend from Great Road, right about at the exact location that the site entrance is today. And it'll extend through the site, and it'll have a couple different access points onto King Street. You might have seen it in our preliminary submission. You probably just saw one plan sheet. As part of our submission for definitive, we've incorporated a lot of different aspects. We've included project narrative and development impact statements, construction cost estimate, a full extensive drainage study, and about a 50 sheet plan set. That plan set includes roadway layout plans, plan and profile sheets, sewer and drainage layout, a lot of extensive utility information, a lot of roadway cross-sections, which I'm sure you guys don't want to flip through. There's a construction phasing plan, which shows roughly what we're thinking as this site gets parceled out and the phases begin. It'll show roughly what we're thinking of construction phasing for the site. It'll extend from Great Road, begin right around the Great Road side and extend to the right, I guess, throughout the site, starting, and we'll alternate phasing going from the rear of the site up to the front, so we can gradually grow the site. There's a construction management plan showing how construction vehicles will access the site. Thankfully, the site is very close to and abutting 495, so construction vehicles will be able to very easily access the site with limited impacts to the town roads. There's also extensive construction details within the plan set. So with that, we look forward to working with you guys throughout this project. This is obviously going to be probably years of projects, and as we go through the different phases, we'll come back in front of you to discuss the site plan review of the various phases as we get there. But we're looking for the subdivision portion of this so we can parcel up the site and really get going. So thank you, and we welcome any questions you guys may have.
Can you give us a layout of the phasing, what your thoughts are?
Yeah.
44.
Yeah.
I thought that might come up.
Since everybody wants to know.
Yeah.
So for our viewers and residents who didn't hear that, the phasing plan that Rick's going to talk about is on page 44 of document number 2 called Site Plans.
And now that I see it on screen, it looks more squiggly than it does on paper. So let's talk it through. So just like we described during the master plan process, we talked about this sort of seeding effect about building some residential, multifamily residential units out in the back, then coming to the front and constructing part of the retail village, then going to the back, then going back to the front and building the site out like that. So the very first phase of the project will actually be the road. So it says infrastructure 1. That's on the sort of middle left side of your sheet there. And that's the first piece of the roadway that creates the infrastructure to support phase 1 and phase 2, and actually most of phase 3. So where it says site 1, that'll be the first phase of new development after the infrastructure is in place. And that's expected again to be the multifamily residential portion of the site. Where it says site 2 down below the infrastructure 1, that's the portion of the retail village, which includes the new town green that's going to be there. That's included in that site 2 area. So it'll be the second phase of the project. Then we'll come back to the back part of the site, site 3, which is adjacent. It's kind of in between site 1 and the existing IBM building. That'll again be multifamily. Then we come back to site 4, which is sort of this middle portion of the village. And then we say site 5 and site 6, but you might remember from the master plan process, one thing that we asked for in terms of flexibility for reusing those buildings, and you guys graciously granted us that, was that we had to be reactive to the market. We had to be opportunistic if a tenant came that could use those buildings. You guys allowed us within the special permit the flexibility to take those basically as they came. So we put stars next to them just to, again, kind of reiterate that nature of those phases there. That, for all we know, right, site 5 might be phase 1 if we get fortunate and find a tenant that wants to occupy that building. And that's flexibility that was provided as part of the special permit for the site. And then, so those are labeled as site 5 and site 6, so the existing IBM buildings. Then site 7 kind of completes the King Street Commons portion of the project, the master plan that we talked about before, because site 8 is actually mostly the former Chinese restaurant site. We're looking at it kind of all together because we need to plan for infrastructure to support these different pads. And then behind that, the rear of the site would be the final phase, phase 9 or site 9. Infrastructure number 2, I skipped over that, but that probably gets constructed I'd say after phase 3 on this, as you look at this. So that's probably when infrastructure 2 would go, because that would provide not only the roadway to access east and west, but also a lot of the utility stubs and connections to support those phases, 4 through 9.
But if you rented out the 2 buildings, you'd be doing that first, I would say.
That's right, yeah. Actually, probably what we'd be looking to do is we'd probably utilize, on the very right side where infrastructure 2, there's the right leg of that, we'd probably utilize that existing entrance. Like if somebody came today looking to rent one of the 2 buildings, we'd probably use the furthest east entrance, dedicate that entrance. We'd probably be back in front of you with some kind of like site plan to show you how the circulation would work, and if things happen out of order of what we're planning, what we're describing to you, we'd come back and show a site plan of what we propose to do to get that tenant functional. We'll have some time, fortunately, because regardless of the tenant, there's probably going to be some significant fit-out work inside the buildings to perform. So we'll have time to prepare that plan, come in front of you, show the different traffic patterns, where's the parking going to be to support those tenants, and the like. So I suspect if that happened first, we'd probably have to come back in front of you with a plan that shows you how that would work, and still allow us to kind of keep working through the phases with that tenant in place at that point.
When are you thinking of actually starting the work out there?
We can't wait. I was very excited. Driving in tonight, and I see, I'm sure people are probably experiencing a lot of headaches with traffic related to the sewer project, but it's very exciting for me to see. So the sewer project's underway. We understand that that's expected to be completed, in the summer of 2025, and we're trying to sync up our development to really marry with that. So it's our intention to get out there and start building the roads for infrastructure 1 in the spring, probably like May of 2024.
So what about the buildings?
Buildings would be right on the heels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right on the heels. Yep. Yeah, I suspect, banks are they can be finicky about, well, trust us, the sewer's coming. What they don't want to have is a building that's completely constructed and then you can't, tie into it, which means you can't occupy the building. Your loan matures from interest-only loan to then, amortized loan, which has major impacts. So I would guess that we'd be seeking occupancy of the buildings probably roughly 6 months after the sewer's complete. That hedges our bet a little bit. So we'll begin construction of the buildings before the sewer's arrived, knowing that we'll probably have a 6-month gap between when the sewer is available and when we're actually looking to tie in with occupancy.
But you're looking at a phase project that may take
years.
6 years, 10 years, who
Yeah,
knows?
I think that's right. Yeah, probably. If we come out of this cycle, the economy's cyclical. We're going to come out of the cycle that we're in now. Interest rates are going to come down again. Development's going to get more favorable, and so we're hoping to make headway in the first few years. We'd like to get the green built. We'd like to get the residents there. We'd like to get a portion of the front village built. And if things happen and we get lucky with timing, it could happen pretty quickly, but pretty quickly for me is probably 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
If we hit another cycle or something like that, it could stretch out to 8 years or so, probably. Yeah.
5 years from now or 5 years from 2025?
I think 5 years from now.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the parking strategy if you get a tenant for, the existing building? There was always going to be a parking strategy.
That's right.
And it involved some structured parking.
That's right.
So would you then just jump on building that, or?
Yeah, so I think, what we do, if we said that Site 5, which is the westernmost IBM building, the one closest to Great Road, if that was the first building to go, I think we try to utilize the existing parking fields that are currently Site 4 and Site 7
Okay.
as an interim measure. There is a proposed garage on Site 3. So I think when that residential on Site
Sort of wrapped by apartments.
That's right, exactly right. Yep, exactly right. So I think we would save the construction of the garage for Site 3. Our ideal scenario would actually be that somebody prefers the Site 6 IBM building, which is the one to the right. We used to call it Building B back in the master plan phase. And that would be ideal because there's that existing parking lot that's on Site 9 that's really out of the way. And we can kind of just give them their entrance over there. It'll be dedicated for them. We'll come to and show you guys what it's going to look like and how the circulation would work, how the parking would work for that type of tenant. But there's a decent number of parking spaces up in that Site 9 area that are really out of the way and let us go about our business for a long time before we have any conflict.
So Site 8, which is, the Yangtze River,
Mm-hmm.
what's the feeling about that? What is, because that wasn't included in the original master plan.
That's not included in the master plan, so our vision for it as we are today, we're viewing it like VC, the Village Common Zoning District.
Okay.
So it would be, you know, a 2.5-story mixed-use building, ground floor, retail, upper floor, possibly residential. We're not totally baked on that, that's, you know, the one of the later phases.
Right.
The only reason we've said phase 8 for that instead of phase 9 is that phase 9 will likely include another parking garage if we get there for the building B or site 6 tenant. And it'd be nice if that was screened in the front from view by a building beforehand.
So would you consider demolishing that? I mean, it'd be sad to have that here for 5 years.
We would consider that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then and then there's a little outlot on Westford. So do you have a whole other process with Westford on that, or how does that work?
No, so I think what we need to do is when we get near the finish line with you guys, I think we'll bring this plan to Westford and talk to their planning board, or probably their planning agent to start with and find out. I suspect there's nothing to do because we actually, the way it lists in the assessor's office in Westford is its own separate parcel, the Westford piece, so we're not proposing to subdivide that, that stays intact. So there's probably nothing to do, but I think we're going to talk about, you know, coordinating with the agent when we get further along, you know, with you guys.
And then, so in terms of King Street, you've introduced, you're basically using the 2 existing roadways into the site, but you're then adding a 3rd one in the middle.
Yeah, and the 3rd one is roughly where the Tuttle House driveway is. The left one, I should say, is pretty much.
Well,
where
the
Tuttle
left
House-
one
yeah.
is where the, you know, the existing main entrance is, right?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
I'm talking about.
I'm sorry,
Then,
yes.
then the right one is where the existing.
It's the one in the middle.
That's
it's
right.
The one in the middle.
Yep,
is
that's
the
right.
New one. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Any idea how many apartments are we talking on site 1?
Yeah, so site 1 is probably 450 to 500 apartments.
That many?
In that range, yeah. We believe that it's going to be 2 buildings, and it might even be like a phase 1A and phase 1B. The reason that so much of it happens early, and we talked about this during the master plan process too, is that creating a critical mass of people on site is going to be important to vibrancy and making sure that the retail gets off to a good start in the early phases of the village development. And we need successful retailers early on site 4, or it jeopardizes, you know, the future retail portion, which is important to everybody. It's important to us. I know it's important to you guys because we spent a lot of time talking about the form of that front village, and we need to be successful. So
I have a question about that, if I may interrupt, because it's right on to what you're talking about, and that is, a resident had asked me this as well, as to why Site 2 would be first instead of Site 1. And so you just explained why, because of the vibrancy of it. But one of the things that I think I just need to make sure that I know the answer to is, we already are a vibrant town in terms of lots of people who are here ready to seize upon whatever retailers go in there. So can that be taken into consideration? Because people do want that to be built up, as opposed to having the residents first to supply the people for the retailers. We already have the residents.
yeah, sure. So I'll try my best. So Site 2, the type of projects that are in Site 2, it's probably, we're talking about 1 or 2 restaurants in the green space. And so for us to undertake, you know, the green space by itself is probably going to cost around $4 or $5 million. We plan to build it up beautiful. It's going to have nice landscaping, and it's going to have infrastructure to be able to host community events and the like. So it costs a lot to get off the ground, and right now the market to support that on just a couple of smaller restaurants, you know, maybe 1 medium-sized restaurant and 1 small cafe-style restaurant, it's just not, it doesn't support the project economics. Having the apartments go first builds a lot of value into the site, which allows for, you know, when you're working your way through a project, it's like you get phase 1 up and running, and then that's an asset to the site that can be borrowed against to go to phase 2, and you work your way through the project like that. So vibrancy, yes, but also project economics to build out all the infrastructure to start with phase 2 and delay the income on the site, which is really a lot of Site 1 and 3 is a lot of the income. We think that Site even 4 and 7 are going to be pretty revenue neutral. I think The buildings are expensive, more expensive to build per square foot than many other buildings because of the character that we're all looking for. It's important to us because we think the site becomes an asset for a long time. And, you know, you build things right and they're valuable forever. And so we want to do that, but they're probably pretty revenue neutral. We're probably going to get in rent about what we spend. The big significant value increase on the site will be, you know, site 1, 3, and if we can find great users for 5 and 6 for the IBM buildings, those also represent decent revenue opportunities for the site. But the front village is going to be pretty expensive per square foot to build. We want it that way. It should be beautiful. But the rent that we're going to get for those spaces is probably barely going to cover the cost to construct it.
Thank you.
So when you went back to phase 1, 400, you're not talking 400 at the same time. You're talking like building of 200,
Yeah.
see how that goes, and then further on down. And I just want to.
Yeah, I think phase 1, site 1 will be probably 2 buildings. Yeah.
And a couple of years to build that out.
Oh yeah, I would say, you know, each building is probably 15 to 18 months to build.
So-
Now, there might be some things we do concurrently, like, as an example, we might do some of the foundation work. We also have planned like a plinth. We kind of talked about taking advantage of the topography back there to minimize parking structures on site. So you might see some things that will sort of support the second building, phase 1A or 1B. We'll call that's why we kind of lump the phases together like that. But yeah, I would say the time from when we start phase 1 and the time we complete phase 1, as it's shown on here, is probably 3 years. Yeah.
3 to 4 years.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's probably if you want to break it down, it's probably about 1.5 years per building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the phasing appeals to me because site 1 is essentially a gigantic parking lot, which is completely empty right now. Well, at least site 2 has some green space that, you know. So, okay, we're opening this hearing. We then have to get this peer reviewed since it's, okay.
So we send it out.
Yeah.
I have a few more questions before we.
Okay, before I open it to the public, please.
So I just wanted to confirm what the statement says in the project narrative, if I can just read it. It says, "A closed drainage system is proposed in the subdivision roadway that directs stormwater to the existing stormwater pond on the northwest corner on site, eliminating the need to outlet into the King Street closed drainage system." So could you put that into layman's terms?
Yeah. We had a couple of serious downpours this summer, right? So when you think of those really high intensity rainfall, storm events that you have, what we want to do is make sure that the street network doesn't get flooded in those kind of downpour events. So what we're going to try to do is steer all the storm water on site to the back where we have these large detention basins that were constructed by IBM years ago. And they'll be getting treatment along the way as they work their way back there too. But basically, instead of pouring water into, although it's DOT, but you know, residents experience, if there's flooding on King Street, that's not good for residents. They don't really care about DOT Street, but basically getting drainage away from King Street and away from Great Road and keeping it on site.
So what he has to do is he has to design this for a 100-year storm and make sure that all the water that he captures stays on that site.
Right.
That's right.
And we already
And
have.
keep it out of the roads.
And there are already existing areas to which that can be
Yeah.
funneled. Okay.
That's right.
What about the one next to, what goes on with the one next to Tuttle?
Yeah, that's gonna need to be replaced with underground systems.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah. We think that there's opportunity for underground systems beneath the future green space and also sort of among the parking areas there. But that's the plan for that.
You had another statement, it might be related to what Jeff just asked, where you said existing environmental resources, as noted above, will all be preserved with the exception of some landscaped area near the Tuttle House? Is there any?
Is that referring to the pond or?
Or to the green space?
That must be.
Yeah. The green space around the Tuttle House is going to be
Enhanced. Yeah, enhanced, yeah.
It's going to be what? I'm sorry.
Enhanced,
Enhanced, yes.
improved,
Okay.
yeah, improved as part of the project, yeah.
Isn't it your intention to try to donate the title house to the town? At some point, there was talk of that.
There was talk, yeah. There was talk of that, and in the subdivision plan, it lends itself to that remaining a possibility. It's its own lot, which makes it easier to convey in the future. Not a decision for me, obviously, but a discussion between the town and the developer. Yeah. And the subdivision process that we're going through will facilitate that if it is favorable for both sides.
So the previous owner sought to subdivide the Tuttle House from
They did.
the overall parcel. They did.
Mhm.
So that's incorporated into your.
Yeah, I think there's a small lot line adjustment because I think we're splitting off some of the land to put it towards the green, the town green.
Okay.
Yeah, that's going to be kind of just to the east of the Tuttle House there.
Anybody else have any questions
I
for
have
her?
one final question.
Okay.
Okay, so under the document called Developmental Impact Statements, and I don't know if Maureen, you'd be able to bring it up, it's document 10. So I really appreciate the fact that you all provided the town with the calculations as to the proposed revenue and cost to the town. And if you wouldn't mind, if Maureen's able to bring that up, to be able to go through those at a high level, because one of the things that is really important over the last 5 months has been really important for the town to understand how important it is for this project, not only for the MBTA communities, but also as a revenue source for the town. So being able to see those numbers, I think, is really important. And for residents, this document is labeled Document 10, Developmental Impact Statements, and the numbers are all there for everyone to see.
That's right. Yeah, so at a high level, you know, I think most people understand intuitively that new development, new investment into properties generates higher tax revenue for the town. But when a project like ours proposes as much residential as it does, it's important to also understand what the costs are, right? That the town's going to incur from additional services to support those uses. And so what we want to do with this exercise is to demonstrate that the future tax revenue will far exceed the future costs, even when we consider them. So at a high level, what we did was we first determined the costs. We used your annual town report. I think we used the 2022 one, the most recent one available on the website. We went down to the budgets for the relevant categories that are listed in the subdivision regs, and that's basically public safety, which includes police, fire, EMS, dispatch, building, emergency management, crossing guards, and the K-9 units. We found what that budget was, and we basically assigned a per capita dollar value. So how much are you spending per resident on that service? We did the same thing for the library, same thing for parks and recreation, same thing for schools. So we try to understand for schools how much per student are you spending, and for the town services how much per resident are you spending. Then we apply our development scenario, and we have 780 apartments. I believe that we assumed that there was about 1.5 people per unit, which brought us to, I gotta take to find the numbers. Where are we? This is the taxes, this is the revenue. Yeah, so that got us up to calculate, 1.5 times 780. Gave us a number of new residents, and then we applied that per capita cost to all the new residents for those various services. So that allows us a pretty good opportunity to estimate how much it's going to cost. I think it's probably conservative because, baked into a lot of your municipal costs that you have in your report is your existing infrastructure. You already have a town hall, you already have a police department, you already have a fire department. So we're not talking about building new buildings and major capital expenditures, but there are extra demands on staff. And so I think this method is sort of a conservative way to estimate what those costs are. So we did that for all the various categories. We assigned a per capita cost and then multiplied it by how many people we expect to be living on the site. And then we did the same thing for taxes. We estimated what we think the future tax assessed value of the project will be, and then multiplied it by your tax rates to determine what the annual expected income to the town would be. So just at a high level, when we took new net income or new income on the site in the form of tax revenue, and then we subtracted the annual municipal cost increases that are part of the development, what we found was that there was a net benefit to the town from a fiscal perspective of over 3.7 million per year.
And that's at full build-out.
And that's at full build-out. And so we'll work our way there over time. It'll start out less than 3.7 million, but always in the right direction. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and what I really appreciate about that is, for example, if school committee or the Shaker Lane subcommittee that's working on a potential new school, the fact that you calculated 78 new students, there's no telling where within the school system, they would come in, but at least the school system now knows that there could be 78 new students somewhere in the system.
That's right. Yep.
And is that every year then, at full build-out, 78 students?
Yeah, because
Here.
we think that the nature of multifamily is probably rotational, right? So, there may be a family that lives there all the way through school, and then someone new moves into the apartment. And so what we find is that on average, about there's one school-age student, K through 12, for about every 10 units in these types of apartment buildings. So that's where the 78 students come from. So I think it's not like it's 78 new students per year. It's like at any given time, forever, sort of. There's
Right.
78 students that are living here.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And these numbers with a net of 3.7 is the numbers that were shared back in the spring. They seem to be a little bit higher. Did you all go through and readjust?
We did, yep. Yep, we went through, we readjusted, and what we didn't show on here, because it's not the subject of this, but one of the things that we had talked about back then was we also included the revenue analysis from 410 Great Road. So that site's not involved in the subdivisions, so where this was really subdivision focused, we kind of just focused this effort
Got
here.
it.
There's
That makes
additional,
sense.
there's additional net, just so you residents know, there's additional future net fiscal positive benefit to 410 as well.
Okay,
But we kept this just focused to the 550 site.
okay,
Yeah.
great. So,
Since you brought that up,
Yes.
are you going to try to do 410 in the phasing of this as well?
Yes. Yep. And we should probably show you where. Yeah. Sorry, Mark. We don't have to go back. No, we don't have to go back.
Just a brief overview. That-
Yeah. In my estimation, it would be after phase 3, after site 3.
But it makes sense for it to be part of this.
To be part of this. Yeah. Yep. That's right.
So it would be basically after you've built most of the housing.
That's right. Yeah, the only housing that would probably not have been built in full by then would be the housing that's going to be above the retail in the village as we work our way through that phasing. But, sometime concurrent with like Site 4 or Site 7 there is probably when 410 would go. And in a lot of ways, 410, when we look at this and we think about sequencing and, okay, when are utilities able to service the future buildings and how are we going to have occupancy in these buildings while we're building all around it? In a lot of ways, 410 is sort of independent in that regard, and that it's physically separated by Great Road, so the phasing and how it meshes with everything else that's already going on site is a little bit easier to figure out.
All right, any questions from the audience? Real quick, because we're running real late. I'll start with George in the back. All right, go ahead. You want to go first? You want to go first?
I thought you said you were.
George says he doesn't want to go
I'll let
first.
you go first. Bill Cole, 573 King Street. I have several questions. I've heard site number 2 referred to as the new green common or something to that. What is going to be put on site number 2?
Yeah, so, sorry, Mr. Chair, for you. Yep. So on site number 2, there's going to be proposed to be restaurants and a new green space that'll be open for the public. So it'll be like essentially a public park
Okay.
with restaurants that are attached to kind of help activate it.
Okay, second question. I know that it was approved to include the Yangtze River property as part of the combined use or expanded use, whatever the term is. Is that property owned by the Lapoli enterprise?
I'll
or-
correct you. The Yangtze was not, but he said it's going to be. You own.
Okay, well,
It's
he's saying it's going to be, but that's pure conjecture at this point. Am I wrong?
It has to be form-based coding like everything else in the front of it because that's where the zone is, so.
All I'm getting at is, it's included in this presentation only because it's a mixed-use parcel. But because it is not owned by the entire 550 King Street, I don't even know why it's in the discussion.
It is owned by them. They bought it. You own.
It's possible that's under agreement
Yeah, you just said that it was not.
If I may kind of further elaborate, so this is a subdivision plan process, right? And so we go through this and we show how the lots would be divided up among the parcels. We wouldn't be able to record the subdivision that involves subdivision of that land until it was fully owned.
And that's why I'm stating, I don't know why it's in the discussion, because I'll go back to what I said. The ownership is pure conjecture at this time. Is that wrong?
Yeah, it's probably nuanced, but it is under agreement. It's not, you know, it would be conjecture if we had no contractual relationship with the owner to purchase the property, probably.
Has the planning board seen a copy of this document?
A purchase,
Yeah.
No, I don't believe so. But I will say that the plan, any plan that involves the modifications of property lines, for example, of a parcel, would need to be under the ownership prior to the subdivision plan being recorded.
So, however, you're not, I mean, this is an interesting situation. You're not changing the property lines of that parcel. So would we vote on a definitive subdivision plan without you owning that property? And if so, why?
No, I think you would vote on it with a condition that we own the property prior to recording. Yeah. So why it's included in our plans, maybe I should start there, is sort of transparency. You know, we've been talking about, you know, putting all of our cards on the table from the beginning, showing you guys what our intention is to do work over there. We could, if we needed to, like let's say there was an issue or a reason that we weren't going to move forward with the sale or the purchase of that property, we could, with very minor change to a couple of property lines over there, basically just cut that property out of it. That's not going to happen. So it's our, I feel like, prerogative to tell you with transparency what our plan is. Okay. Our plan is to continue with closing on that property. Our plan is to construct the infrastructure as part of the subdivision to support the development of that property, and to be forthright about it and not exclude it from the discussion and then add it at the end. That seems disingenuous, and it's not how we've approached the project from the beginning with you guys.
With all due respect, I don't know why it is up there labeled site such and such when it's not owned by the proposed project. That's what bothers me. I see no reason why it should even be up there and designated as site, whatever, 9, I think. It's irrelevant. It should not be up there. And when you say you're using transparency as a reason to include it, transparency would have been, when you started, we do not own that parcel now, but we expect to. That would be transparency. To include it in your initial presentation as part of this entire project is not transparency.
Well, I think the reason they did it is to show, like you said, how all the infrastructure is going to combine with it. And we're looking at something that's probably not going to be done for 6 or 7 years anyway.
Yeah, that would be, you know, like as we have it labeled, the reason they're labeled that way is to show this is the phasing plan, so to show when we think development on that would occur in the sequence of development, and it's, you know, 5 to 8 years away. Yeah. But,
what if we ask that be notated as such, that at the time of approval, that it is not currently owned, but there is a
we need to see
under contract.
It's under agreement. Yeah, it's under contract, under agreement. Yeah.
And
but you don't have a copy of that under agreement contract.
But this is preliminary. This is the first meeting of it. We're not done yet. We're
not voting on.
We're not voting on anything else like that. We can ask him for it, and hopefully he'll present it by the next meeting. We still got a couple more meetings to go on this.
Thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Cole.
Yeah, and I think, you know, what's the purpose of the plan? The purpose of the plan is to show the proposed infrastructure that needs to be built on the site to support the development. But I'm respect the comment, and I agree with the if for some reason it's not closed by the time we're ready to vote on the subdivision, by the time the board's ready to vote on the subdivision, then, we're amenable to any condition or language or providing, it would be unusual for us to provide a purchase and sale agreement to you guys, but if that's what you want, then that's what we'll give you.
Okay.
Speaking of that property, I know that residents have asked before about that tree. So if you were to acquire the property, are you looking to preserve that big tree that's out front? Apparently it has some semblance of historical value.
Oh, okay, I have to review that. I hadn't heard about that, so
Okay.
we'll take a look and see where it falls in the scheme of things, yeah.
Okay.
Are you,
Is it,
can I ask George, or you have any more questions?
is it along King Street, the tree?
It's right
Yeah, it
on
is.
King Street in
Okay.
front of the restaurant.
Mr.
Yes.
Sanders?
George Sanders, 672 Great Road. Mr. Chairman, I'm concerned about the 21 lots. I guess they're going to break it up into, that's about 41 acres over there. And I know the assessment as it stands right now is on the 41 acres over there. So when they break this up, how is the assessment going to be put on these lots? Is there going to be an increase based on the value of land today that they're breaking these up into lots? Is it going to exceed what the value of the 41 acres is over there? How is that going to be distinguished between what is left there versus the 21 acres that they're going, 21 lots that they're going to put in place there? How's that going to
Let me
happen?
start. So first of all, we've already broken it up into 21 lots. We did that a month ago, 6 weeks ago. And the reason we did it is so that when they go get their funding,
I understand that on the.
okay, so that's all it has to do with. The financial arrangements, you're still dealing with the finance committee and the assessors and everything else. That's not going to change. The only way it changed was so that they could go to the bank and say, I want Lot 5, Lot 7, Lot 3, we're going to borrow the money on that, and then makes it easier for them to borrow money. That's the only reason we did it, and we did it 6 weeks ago.
Okay.
Well, but George, are you asking, is the actual assessment going to decrease
No.
at any
Yeah,
time?
that's what I'm trying to
No,
find
it's not
out.
going to
If
decrease,
it's
yeah.
going to decrease or increase because they're breaking it off where they're going to put in these new buildings that they're going to build over there. So you're going to have the rest of it left based on what they have there. So
But George, we're looking at the aggregate. So this whole project is $300 million, let's pick a number.
Close to $1 billion in total, yeah.
Billion. They're going to be taxed on the $1 billion. Wherever it goes on those 22 lots, we don't really care.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Exactly right, yeah, and I think, so George, one way to think of it is, we're gonna be taxed on the 42 acres, regardless. My expectation is, and this is not my decision, it would be the town assessor's decision, but my expectation is usually your assessment is based on land and buildings. So I think what they'll do is they'll divvy it out so that if you aggregate it together, let's say we do no buildings after the subdivision for a year, let's say, in aggregate, we're probably paying the same exact taxes as we're paying now. But as buildings get added to the project, well, then there's new taxable buildings.
she said she was going to be here from the last meeting that you had, because that's why she's going around to find out when you were coming back. Okay, I understand that if that's what's going to take place there. I just wanted to understand, to make sure that we wasn't going to be losing anything.
No, we're going to get our money. Don't worry, George. We'll get our money. All right, so we're going to continue this till...
Can I ask one more question,
Sure.
please? Does the school department or has the planning board come up with their numbers on how many students are going to be added to the schools based on the number of 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom apartments? Or are we just taking, well, you're pointing to him, but he's providing us that information.
We also had the discussion with the school a long time ago, and most of these are going to be 1 unit, 1-bedroom, and 2-bedroom
When you
units.
say most, out of the 780, how many are going to be 3-bedroom?
I think we did 10%.
78.
78 units.
78
78 units.
That's
So
it.
if you have 78 units that are 3-bedroom, you have the possibility of each one of them having 2 children.
So 140 children possible.
So that's the only point I'm trying to
No.
make.
No,
Not likely.
no, it's not like.
When we,
It may not be likely, but the possibility exists, and the number of students added to the school system based on the total number of apartments seems extremely low
May
to
I
me.
address this?
well, we've had demographers, when we did the 15 Gray Road, which is 150 apartments and, the little houses. So the demographer at that point, when they were looking, and I don't know how many years ago that was, they stated that the town would have more trouble filling schools than have trouble with too many kids because of the overall demographics of family formation in this area and throughout the country now. So we could look at that project and see what happened. I don't know. I haven't heard any, well, some people say, oh, there's a lot of kids getting on it there, but that may be true. But the other thing to point out is that if there are more than 78, there's $3.5 million to fund more schools. I mean, it's not like we're at the knife edge of this, working out.
That $3.5 million that was spent on the Shaker Lane School in a hack.
Well, yeah, and it may be that this type of project is going to enable us to afford the Shaker Lane project. But I don't know.
If I
Go
may
ahead.
add, so one of the things that I've been advocating for to the select board, to our town administrator, is to please allocate resources from our finance department to vet the figures that the Lapoli company has provided, and they're totally agreeable to that. So we just need to have the town resources to vet those numbers, to have school committee vet the numbers. I mean, they're now available for anybody to take a look at. And if the town is to do it, then it should be folks in the finance department, and that's beyond our purview. So to that, I mean, you could turn around and look at your select board member and ask him to push on that.
We also had the school department come in and talk about this. They said enrollment was going down and that they had, I believe, 60 spaces that are outside of Littleton, that they have other students come in for this. So there was never an issue whether or not this would overburden the school department. So I think your 78 number is probably what they're...
I think it's pretty close, but to be fair, it is an estimate. It's based on studies, that are done nationally. But, we welcome the review of it by anybody in town.
Okay.
And if there's a difference of opinion, I think for the purpose of this exercise, is the project fiscally beneficial for the town? I think we would accept just about anyone else's opinion. If they said we had 400 students, I'd say I don't think so, but for the sake of the numbers, I don't think it changes the math.
Okay.
So to your point about a sensitivity analysis, 78 students, 90
I
students.
mean, there is a point.
Yes.
Your point might be that, we don't know exactly what schools those students, I mean, are they going to be elementary age or high school age or what? We don't know. I don't know how we could know. I've been through a lot of town meetings where we've had projections. Well, it came up when they were doing the middle school, I think. How big to build a middle school and this and that. And they did detailed analysis over time, like if your kid starts in kindergarten and ends in high school, then there's maybe during that period of time, there are more kids in the school than they started out with, but then it goes down again, and it's I don't know how detailed we can get.
We can ask the school department
Yeah.
for more info, but they're the ones that are telling us that enrollment's actually going down in Littleton. So. Anyway, we're going to continue this to...
October 12th. Do you want to do this one at 8:30? It's late.
Okay. And we'll hopefully have first blessed peer review, so...
And just Mr. Chair, as a matter of order, when the peer reviewer is assigned, we have the permission to coordinate directly between Maren and the peer reviewer to resolve comments, et cetera. Yeah, okay, wonderful. Yeah.
Okay, Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn this meeting.
So moved. Second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Cole.